All right, guys. So I've done some research and just lots of reading and stuff like this. So I've learned this is, well, I'm pretty sure this is an IGT S Plus machine, I guess. So if anyone else out there watches this and knows I'm wrong, because I could be, please correct me in the comments. But it says Error 61 CMOS. So I did some reading, and when you get to the 61 error code, you're supposed to hold down this test button and it'll beep or make a dinging sound, and then it'll say 61-1. At that point, you're supposed to close the top here, your door, and this here and that there are little photo sensors that lets them know that they're directly across from one another, letting the PCB know that the door is closed. And then once the door is closed, you're supposed to turn the jackpot reset key one time, and that will make it basically, I don't know if this is the correct word, but basically makes it reboot. And then it should clear out its own RAM errors. But sometimes after a battery change, which I did, it doesn't do that, and you have to buy a clear chip to put in where the CMOS, or put in somewhere on this board. I think it's the game ROM or something, I don't know. And then you go through those steps and it'll actually clear all the errors out of all the RAM, and then you can reinsert your original chip and go through the boot process again, and it should clear it up for the most part. So while I was tinkering around with this, I got these reels to spin, and if you can hear, they sound pretty nasty compared to other videos I see people turning these. They're nice and quiet. And when these are turning, they're making a hell of a racket. So what I want to do is, since now that I know the motors actually work, because I've actually had them spinning in some sort of test mode. Now I got a lot to learn here, fellas, so you know, in a later video on this Tinker Toy here, I might kind of contradict myself from what I'm saying now, because I've learned something new. So anyways, I'd like to try to remove this out of the machine. It appears that I can. It kind of lifts up out of here just like these pieces do. At least I assume so. So I'm going to try to get this whole reel piece out of here, because I've learned that these little tapes, these little notches right here, that's what times these white or these decal slips, or whatever you want to call them. It's what times them on the reel, so the computer knows where they're at, if that makes sense. So I kind of would like to pull these out and clean them, and maybe service the little motors on here, or whatever it takes to quiet them down a little bit, if that's even possible. So I've rambled now for 5 minutes, so if you're still here, I'll get into it now. Also, in my 5-minute breakdown of all this stuff, I noticed that when you're spinning this to check it, the computer will always stop these overlap marks in the same spot every time, and it stops it right on the pay line. So I don't know if that's some kind of thing to check what's going on, or if that's the default thing, but at least it makes me feel like the PCB is reading where they should be at, and it is communicating and stopping them there. So I just wanted to add that, guys. And I still can't figure out how to get this out. Alright, it appears there's a Phillips screw right there. Single Molex plug going in to power these reels. So if I can get this machine working, guys, I think I'm going to tear everything out of it till the empty metal box. Wire wheel everything to get most of the rust out. Clean everything as I put it back in, and then rebuild all the wood for it. I think it'll be a pretty cool thing. Alright, so got it out now. It was that screw in the bottom. Pretty nasty, huh, guys? Must have been sat outside or somewhere pretty damp for a long time. Alright, so video reference, reel 1, reel 2, reel 3. Reel 1 has at the notch the blue bar, or turquoise bar. Second reel has the purple double bar with the down diamond. And then reel 3 is a teal bar as well. Okay. Okay, so 1 and 3 are the exact same. Hear how... I'm going to pull this stuff apart and see if it can be lubricated and stuff. I am also going to take the payout bin in and kind of set it on my bench and go through it, tearing it down, making sure that the motor spins and all that. Because I have not been able to test that yet, and I think I can only test it after that 61 is gone off of the computer. This was assembled 6/29 of 1993. So apparently this is a 93 model, or 1993 it was made. Alright guys, so I took the motor out. I got this front housing here. It's got a bearing in it. If I spin the reel, it feels real smooth. Like it really shouldn't make any shuddering at all. I mean, it's smooth. But this back bearing, it's got rough, catchy spots in it. And it just feels like it's full of shit. It's a sealed bearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull it off the armature or the... No, it's really not a... What is this? Is this the armature? Commentator would be on this side if it was like a brushed motor. This is a brushless motor. So this still would be the whatever I said. I can't remember now. I'm going to try to pull this bearing off anyways. And I'm going to try to flush it out with some WD-40 and get it spinning real fast to maybe break up whatever's in there. And if I can get it to spin smooth, I'm betting when I put this back together, it won't do that shuddering sound anymore, where it's shaking this because it's so rough. If that makes sense, I'm going to try it and I'll let you know what happens. Okay guys, so I don't know what I've recorded, but I got this bearing off. I've got it feeling a lot smoother just by spinning it really fast. It's probably just some clumped up greasy crap in there. So I don't know if you can hear this, but this clicking sound. That's this plastic wheel. See how it's, the shaft of the motor comes through the wheel. And then you see this piece right here. It's like wings sticking out. That's probably a pin going through the shaft of the motor to, well, connect it so it can drive it. And this plastic wheel rattles on that. And it's held on by one of these washers that once you push it on a shaft, you really can't take it off without destroying it. And if you do get it off without totally destroying it, chances are probably won't hold like it is right now. But good news is they do sell these. You can even get them at the auto parts store. So my plan is, since I know how this all comes apart and it ain't that difficult, and I know that all three reels spin, I'm gonna just put it back together, as I'm just trying to learn a little bit right here. And I'll see if this wheel is any quieter when it spins versus the other two. And when I go to tear the complete machine down after I know that it's working, to rebuild, restore, repair, refurbish, whatever you want to call it, I'm gonna pull these shafts out, because I have an idea that if I clean both bearings in the motors, they'll spin real smooth and quiet. And what I'll do is, when I put the shaft back in this wheel, is I'll drop a little bit of RTV silicone sealant down in there. And then when I push this in and put the new cap on here, it'll keep that vibration from making that noise. So it'll run really smooth and quiet then. If that makes sense to everybody. Alright, guys. I forgot to say this, but on this wheel as it spins, you can see there's different styles and shapes and spaces of just spaces, I guess. See how to explain that. This is how I think of it. You see this little optic right here, that these open spaces and closed gaps are spinning through, and they're all different. So I think what that does is, it's like a Morse code or a Braille that this is reading, that the PCB reads through this little eye right here. You know, a small or like a, you know, them scanner codes on a product that you scan at the store. It picks up the gaps and stuff like that, and then it knows that when it stops, that whatever just passed, that's where it's at. I'm pretty sure that's how it knows where the wheels are at. And that's why it's important that the piece that covers here with the cherries and stuff on it are keyed to that piece. Sort of like a JAMA connector. It can only go one way, and if you force it on a different way, it ain't gonna work because the pictures ain't lined up with these little keys on here. If that makes any sense, that's how I look at it. So I'm probably explaining it, I sound like an idiot, but that's how I look at it. These coils in here are clean and not rusty. So I don't think like that armature was hitting any of these making that. I think it was just the stiffness in them bearings. And then it shuddering and making, exacerbating this rattling sound. But I can't put this motor back together because on this front one there's probably like a spring washer, a wave washer that you gotta pull, and I can't get something in here to push it down because I don't want to break this. These are very thin plastic, so I am gonna have to disconnect this from the shaft so I can put the motor back together. You can tear it apart, but it's be rather risky to be putting something in between these windows to pry this back down against the case to get the screws in. So I'm just gonna disconnect the hamster wheel off here so I don't break anything. I don't want to break anything. This is cheap, thin plastic, and if I break it, where am I gonna buy another one? I don't know. So I'm just gonna take that off and put the motor back together. As you can see, a shaft through the drive shaft to act as a key to power these wheels. Now when I put this back together for good, I'm gonna put just a pinch of RTV sealant right here, silicone. So when I push this through, the silicone will set around this pin and in here, and it'll act as a cushion, keeping that loud shuddering sound from being so loud because it's not vibrating back and forth on this pin. If that makes sense, that was my idea. So here it all is apart. You got your coils in here. This armature thing is like a magnet. It is magnetic. So I guess this is what a permanent magnet DC motor. "12 volts. So that's the motor number, guys, if you have one of these. There's the little SOS reader. And alright. That's how these reels come apart. Hopefully I remember how to put it together. Exactly as I thought. It's like I forget what they call these. These are in automatic transmissions as well. They're like a wave washer that helps take up clearance. So what this is doing in there is it's just keeping it, once the case is closed, it keeps it from wobbling and walking like this because it keeps a constant pressure on it. And it can keep a constant pressure on it without having to have like super fine case tolerances that will keep it from doing that. They can just put a cheat by putting a little tension washer in there to make it keep from walking, in my opinion. So I'm going to pull both these bearings off now, since I had to take the wheel off. And I'm going to soak them in some acetone to try to clean out all the crud that's in there. And then I'll, once I think they're spinning pretty clean, I'll soak them in some lightweight 3-in-1 oil for a couple hours to re-lubricate them, and then I'll put them back on, and we'll see how this motor sounds compared to the other ones when we get farther along in this project. Both bearings are out. I'll add a clear picture in here for the bearing part numbers here on the sides. I'll have to try to get it as clear as I can, a picture. So the next picture that comes up is going to be the bearing part numbers here, guys. In case you might have a reel that you know has got a bad bearing. You can go ahead and order it now. Alright guys, so I took the bearings off. You saw I soaked them in WD-40, would take them out, spin them, put them back in, you know, and you'd see a little bit of brown stuff leaching out of them. And kept doing that until they felt rather smooth and easy to spin. Free, you know, you could flip them and they would just keep spinning on their own. I got that clip back on, although I'll put a new one on if I go through with everything because stuff's working. So take a little listen here. Oop, almost made it fall over. So when I pushed this up in there, it pushed it tighter against the things in here, and the rattling stopped because the bearings ain't catching. Totally just ridiculous difference. But though when I finally put it together, because I want to disassemble all three completely and wash everything so it's all clean. So when I finally put them together for good, I'll dab a little bit of silicone in there. When I push it in and put the new cap on, it'll like be cushioned. I don't know if you can hear it, motor running or not. Alright, so I think I'm going to end this video here, guys. So like, subscribe, share, comment, shit like that. Alright, peace.
How did he do that?